If you have cattle, sheep, or pigs that you use in a paddock-style pasture management system, this is an amazing shelter to build. We're going to show you exactly how we do it. Stay tuned. Hey guys, welcome back to our channel, The Purpose Driven Homestead. Now today I want to bring you along and show you how we built this really cool mobile shelter for our animals. Now we built a similar version of this for our pigs and it worked so well that we decided to modify it, build it bigger, and then use that for our new cattle that are on our homestead. Now instead of taking you step by step through the build, I'm going to show you some of the features and do a little bit of the B-roll just to kind of move this along, but I think it's something that you're going to enjoy. But I wanted to talk about mainly the features that we put in on this particular shelter. So before I get started with the video today, guys, the idea here is that we are going to pull this behind the cattle. So when I say behind the cattle, we'll enter into a new paddocks with the cattle, and then behind that I'll pull in this as part of their shelter, then I'll close off the paddock behind them. The whole idea behind regenerative farming is that you're using animals to improve the land, not to take from it. And so in this case, the idea is that through rotational grazing and paddock style grazing, which is kind of mob grazing, some people will call it, but you have a very intensive time in one space, then you move the animals to the next paddock and it allows the first paddock to rest. Now this mimics what would happen in nature. If you look at the Great Plains of the United States, some of the most fertile land in the entire world, that came from animals like bison grazing, but predators pushing those animals forward, so they never took two bites of the same grass twice in a row. The idea being that whenever you take a bite of that grass, whenever that animal bites a blade of grass, it sheds a commensurate amount of plant matter under the ground in the form of roots. So every time that cattle eats, it's taking some from the top, but it's also taking some from the bottom of that plant. And in a lot of ways, that then opens up the space in the soil, creates a loaminess, earthworms can get in there. But if it takes two bites, then it loses so much plant matter that it can kill the grass. And so what you're trying to do is strike that balance where it gets a bite and then they move on to the next space. And so we typically keep our animals in a paddock for about 1 to 3 days, depending on how lush and big the paddock is. Some of them are a little bit bigger, some of them are a little smaller. And so we're pulling this with them. So we put the cattle first, and then we come behind those guys and we pull in their shelter. This then gives them a shade area, but it also doesn't have to be on wheels. It pulls easy. It's not a huge investment, and it's not stationary. That is the biggest problem we see with traditional farming, is that you build all this infrastructure up and it stays in one place. It's not mobile. And so we're trying to find ways, and maybe this won't be it. If you've got a better idea, we'd love to hear from you in the comments as you watch this video. But the idea is that we wanted something mobile, simple to build, and fairly cheap. I'm sure there's an investment here in lumber, but we were able to use a lot of lumber on here from the farm that we had already hewn. So that was nice. We had a sawmill that came out here originally and did that for our family. So it was nice because we were able to use some of that came off of the farm. And we still have some from the recent logging that we need to get cut back up and replace some of that wood as well. So in a lot of ways, this may be a crude version of a shelter, guys, but it's probably different than anything you've seen before because it moves with the cows. So some people are okay with their cows being out, and I understand that. We actually kind of want that, but we just wanted a little space where they could get out of the sun. Here in Eastern North Carolina, it gets extremely hot during the summer, and there's also a lot of rain that tends to happen as well. And so we thought, let's give them just a space to be able to maybe get out of the sun, have a shadowy place out in the hot field if they want to lay down, if they just want to stand up. And we can also hang things like fly paper or that kind of stuff to help make their lives a little easier. So let's start from the ground up. The first thing I did is we built this on a skid foundation. And that's so that we can pull this thing wherever we need to. So I took two 12-foot 4x4s and I cut divots down them. And you can see that there's an angle down there at the bottom. Let's see if I can get over here and show you this one. Might be a little easier to see. Yeah, you can see kind of how I've cut the slot at an angle there. And what that does is it allows it to slide across and not get caught on the ground. So it takes that top section, and I also did it on the back section back here. And that allows me to move this thing, pull it. I actually pull it from the back with a chain here. I'm gonna put some D-rings in it. Just haven't gotten around to that yet. but this actually works fine as is. But that allows this thing to traverse the ground. If there's bumps, if there's debris, it'll go over most of that. The only thing you have to really be careful is make sure that there's enough space here for it to get over. Now, the next thing I did is I put up these 4x4 verticals. This was the structure for it. All of this is pressure treated, what I'd call salt treated, but pressure treated, and it allows it so it can have ground contact. Now, one thing I did is I notched this out. I don't know if you can see it or not, but I'll show this in the background of the video here, but this is notched out. And I cut it out so that this would make it a lot stronger. When you're pulling against it, that notch that I made in the bottom 4x4 that's making ground contact, that allows you to pull against this and it makes it a lot more sturdy. Now what I did is I built these two verticals, right? So two 4x4s, and then I created a truss across the top. And that you can see a little bit easier here. So I notched this out so that would sit on top of it. I built this all on the ground. And so all of this frame, the two 4x4s, the front one up there, and then this back one, then the bottom sled portion, and then that top beam, I built all of that on the ground. Then what I did is I had some help, and I was able to tack these up and put these 2x6s all the way across and join the two together. That then created essentially a box for me. Then I could start working on this, kind of truing it up. It's not completely square, but it is close enough for government work out here. Now, after I got those 2x6s on, I basically framed it up so that I have a 2x6 up here going across almost like a header. Then I have two 2x6s down here at the bottom because I'll be pulling against some of this. The same is true back there in the back. There's two 2x6s on the bottom back there, and then one 2x6 at the top up there. Once I had all that joined, then I started laying my rafters across here. So I put the ones that were running this way across, and then I came and framed up my ceiling with horizontals going across the opposite way. That gave me the structure that I could mount my roof to. After playing with this for a little bit, I decided to come back after the fact and put these cross braces on. This was kind of an afterthought, but what I found is that it had too much play going left and right on it, and so I put those cross members up. That shored it up a dramatic amount. Then I wanted to make sure I showed you guys that this is an angled roof. So you can see that it runs from here and it's got a slant back. The front is 8 feet tall and the back is 7 feet tall. That allowed me then to get a good run. There's plenty of clearance in here. I'm 6 feet tall. I can walk around everywhere in here and hold my hands up, no problem. I figured that way if I wanted to hang fly tape or anything from in here, non-toxic, I could do that and it wouldn't get in our face, it wouldn't get in our way. All right, next I installed those composite panels at the top for roofing. I used a total of 4 across, and then there was 2 rows, and so I had a total of 8 of these. I had some spares left over that I can use for a later thing, but that was the ceiling. That was fairly easy to put up. I had my wife help me with that as well, but that was you know, there's some reaching and that kind of stuff up on the ladder, and I definitely wasn't doing it the safest. There was a couple of times where I was probably standing on the wrong step, and so, you know, I'll tell you guys, don't do that at home. All right, make sure you follow the rules. Then the final step was putting up these crossbars. Now all I did here is really give something to block the wind off and a little bit of the rain off. There's holes in here so air can still move through, but it's just something to block some of the wind off. I could put some hay in here if I wanted to during the winter, but it's not meant to be something that is a solid wall. The top section here is to allow air movement as well, just so that some sun and some air can move through. Now you can see I did the back and the sides Now, none of this timber is actually cut to size. So everything is rough cut. So anything that I've put in here, nothing square, and I can get the ends square, but the boards themselves are all rough cut. They have a lot of live edge still to them, and that's okay. It actually gives the shelter character. We just want it to be strong enough so if the cows kick on it or something like that, it's not gonna be a big deal. Hopefully it'll hold. I'm sure I'll probably have to do some repairs at some point. This is all pine, it's knotty, and sometimes those knots get a little brittle and they wanna break in that spot. But I tried to avoid as much of that as I could. This is all rough cut lumber, and so what I did is I came through here and I made lines, kind of measured off so that I'd have, of course I made some mistakes too, but I had lines measured off originally, and then what I found is that this is all rough cut lumber that we got on the farm. So because of that, I had to kind of make some adjustments as we went along, but I liked the rough edge. I put some of the weaker boards towards the very top, but some of the stronger boards at the bottom. But I think all in all, I think it turned out pretty well. Now, like I mentioned, the last thing that I am going to do that I haven't gotten around to yet is I'm going to mount some D-rings back here to tow from. And I'll wind up putting them on the sides down here. So I'll put them down here at the bottom, but on the side instead of putting them on the top. That'll allow me to connect this chain, and I could pull it without having to go through any of the wood and pulling against it. It works fine, but I do want to make that improvement. I hope you enjoyed seeing the build today, guys. It may not be a super long video, but again, if you have any questions about it, I'm happy to drop in the comments answers to those. If you have any ideas for ways that we can improve this, we would love to hear from you as well. Drop a comment for that as well. But if you want to know in depth, if there's something you want to see more about, I'm happy to make another video or again, answer your questions in the comments. But with that, guys, we hope you like our shelter. I think it is a game changer when it comes to regenerative farming and being able to move a shelter with your animals. You can make a slightly smaller version of this for sheep or even the same size. We have a smaller one that we use for our pigs already. It works great. And I will tell you guys, this is an easy way in a small space to make a big difference for your animals if you want to have some shade or other things for them, for ways for them to get out of the rain or any of the other inclement weather. With that, guys, we hope you have a blessed day, and we'll see you next time on the Purpose Driven Homestead.